And just a practical bit of housekeeping to remind you again, in order to be eligible to use these sessions as part of your CPD credits, you do need to make sure that you've registered for the relevant nurturing work. So what are we going to do today? We're trying to pack in as much as we can. The focus of today's session is Module 1, and the overall title is Picking the Right Course for You, and we're going to look at the first 3 elements that all feed into helping with that decision. Subjects, and exploring those more and what they mean and the connection you have. Or understanding a little bit more around learning and thinking and multiple intelligences. And as part of that, there is growth, mindset, and Dr. Ethna Hunt, of course, will be focusing on that specifically. It's very much a specialist area of hers, and it's very, very valuable and very important. I think for the 1st of October. And on Wednesday, we're going to focus on the second aspects that are more around the career interest and career decision-making side once we progress through these first parts. So decision-making, understanding the influences around us for students, and career interests and how they relate to specific degree options. So today we have about 20 minutes and really welcome any discussion and questions after. So we really try and make sure we have time for that. So just a little about me. Some of you know me, and if you've come through the Masters in Guidance and Counselling over the last 10 years, sadly, I think we're into the 3rd year of not having it now in UCC, you would know me, and I hopefully got to know me quite well if you're here. And I guess look, I'm working for about 30 years in this area. I suppose the first 5 or 6 years of my life were in 2nd level, and I'm in UCC coming up for 22 years now after Christmas. But I guess we work with thousands of students one-to-one, and 9 or 10 of those years I've worked on consultancy basis and on a career break in CIT. I've kind of got a really broad spectrum of experience of working one-to-one, really getting that kind of inner experience and insight into the experience of degree programs, but ultimately helping people plan careers out of degrees. But I think the really valuable part with regard to this is understanding how people thrive in some degrees and not, and others don't. And I've helped a number of people withdraw from courses, and I took on very much a specialist role in that area while in CIT, and in fact interviewed I think 250 students and completed a qualitative analysis of why students leave, and helped unpack that decision, help them make new decisions with the resources actually that I'm using today. So I've experienced every resource and exercise in these modules. It's not pulled out of the sky or a textbook or they are resources you may be very familiar with because they're quite available, but how they come together, I think, is the key valuable part. And they are, I suppose, most importantly, they're exercise and resources that I have found to be very, very effective. So the kind of empirical evidence bit is there as well, just to kind of give a bit of the rationale and the background behind all of this. So I'm not going to go through all the theoretical underpinnings. You all have a good background, solid background in theory, but some of the things that I think are particularly useful to this, particularly this adolescent period, are circumspections, compromise and self-creation, big mouthful, Linda Gottfredson, and of course, social learning theory, career decision-making is huge. And career construction theory with Savikas, and of course, Don Holland, who we all, I think, are very familiar with and love. Personality or person environment fit theory, as it's often called. And with all the different models, as you'd see there, we all know it's just an organic process. There is a staged, step-by-step kind of phased experience through which students go through to arrive at making a decision that we hope is the right decision for those. So we're trying to mirror that. This is what we're trying to simulate in these modules, that it is a step-by-step, knowing it becoming an issue. Career readiness, to just start thinking about this, as we know, where it starts to become a relevant issue and they have to give it attention. Learning about self and all the aspects of that, learning about courses and learning about the world of work. And of course, one of the huge aspects, as we know, and reasons why students withdraw from courses is that they haven't gone through that process, but they haven't actually really examined courses in detail. And that's a huge reason. Often the title of the course evokes all kinds of ideas. It could be quite glamorous, whatever. They don't think that something's beyond that. So you're all very, very familiar with all of this. I have frozen. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm Mary.
Okay,
Yeah.
my slides are frozen. The slides are frozen. So you can hear me. Oh, wait. Okay, try again. Right. Now, Lenka touched on this, but I want to go into it a little bit more, the advantages for you. So it's not like we're trying to make this hard sell. It's just, these are really useful resources. And I think that, you know, you're all experts with a lot of experience. You can use these in all kinds of ways. And here are some of the suggestions. Like, it's a modular building block, very flexible kind of design. So it can be used very flexibly to suit the varying needs of individuals and the priorities, you know, among groups, depending on the timeline and the experience and the stage they're going through. So from TY through to 5th year and 6th year. It can be used in a very, as I say, flexible way or in a structured way. So, you know, here are just some suggestions. You could actually give a whole overview and presentation to students in class, possibly the logical thing might be a screen share, just get into the website and give them a whole overview first of all. Or you having gone through the whole process yourself, you could be, you know, you could encourage students maybe to engage with the modules independently outside of your own school guidance program and really encourage them to discuss it with family, particularly, and friends. Or you could choose, depending on where they're at, you know, to introduce a specific topic or element of a module, such as multiple intelligences, things that they're very familiar with. It could be presented in class, and then they have the worksheet, you know, or an exercise to do related to that at home. So that, you know, with agreed elements of a module, you can have follow-up discussions and reflection and questions and answers in class. Or I think something that I think could be a very attractive module and you know, approach, and really something to consider would be that they do all modules 1 to 3 prior to their one-to-one guidance consultations. And I know that you're all using other packages and other programs and other things as well, but it's part of this whole process. Now, TY students, I do want to talk about in particular, because I think it really, well, you know, particularly the subject choice module is really useful in modules 1 to facilitate, you know, making the right decisions for them for senior cycle, which is so important. We've all seen students who haven't made the right decisions for varying reasons, and really they're not thriving, you know, they're not getting the best out of themselves in meetings. The advantages for students, we've gone through that again. I mean, it's a step-by-step interactive process. It really, I think it really fosters both taking responsibility for themselves, you know, independent learning, and just that opportunity to have other, you know, more targeted, focused, themed discussions. And that hugely helps with the decision-making processes, as we know, thinking about something, becoming a bit informed, talking about it, and going through that cyclical process. But I think the thing I really want to draw attention to is, while we've created it, I really want to get home to across to you again, this is absolutely student-centered, and it's designed for everyone, whether they end up in, you know, Sligo IT, or in the College of Commerce, or in, you know, in UL, or wherever they might be. It will help them make the right decisions. Obviously, we would love them to be coming to UCC, but this is something that is going to be useful to all students. I think with parents, you know, there are all kinds of parents. And of course, we know of first generation students. Every year we have first generationers, as we call them, into the 3rd level system. And I know so many parents feel at sea, you know, they really want to support their children at this very, very important time. And they feel kind of helpless often because they're just not informed. And I think about how they're even making these decisions. So I think it can be part of a whole system if they're doing these at home. And it will really help inform and guide parents as well. But I'd like to draw your attention to this point that I think is worth thinking about. I think for 5th and 6th year students to engage with the modules 1 to 3 of the programme, you know, and to have done that, and with the parents on board with them, so that they're very kind of familiar with what they've been going through, could be such a constructive and helpful part of conversations you have with them at parent-teacher meetings. So that's another idea I'm throwing out there. So modules 1, picking a right course for you. That's the umbrella topic, and we're focusing on today. And I suppose just an overview of the modules. This is how I like to language it and present it directly to students and get a sense of it. What is the focus of all of these short experiences? They're designed to be short and very accessible, so they're not taking on a big 3-hour journey if they commit to it. They're short, 15-minute, 20-minute, you can come in and out of it. But you know, the overall focus is the way you naturally think and learn, and how you can use it in a future career. your favorite subjects and how they link to possible careers, the type of person you are and the types of careers that your personality suits, and the types of possible career sectors and jobs that interest you. Career influences around you, which I think is a very important piece, and the influences in your life, and actually how that also links to how you make decisions. And we have different decision-making styles. So all those really merge together very well. And then, of course, this lovely, very attractive and useful organizer to manage and reflect on the learning journey. So they can start to compile and add in and begin, this was what I would call a little portfolio for themselves. So looking at this, the module will introduce 3 key topics, which I've just mentioned many times, but we're going to go into them now. And before we do, and just walk through them quickly, more or less, this is the format for each one of them, and important to see how, it's part of that whole learning process. They're introduced to the topic, so it's triggering their thinking and their interest and engaging them. They're given a clear idea of what they learn. There are videos which are really engaging and very much a part of that holistic kind of learning process. And there are infographic posters, which when they download, they can click in and interact and actually link into other resources, outside of UCC and within UCC. In most cases, and not all, there's a downloadable interactive worksheet where they do some work, some profiling, and the reflective organizer, and a pointer to other resources as well. So more or less, this tends to be the format. So this is the kind of thing we're going to see, and you'll see if you engage with this. And each chunk, each building block of this has a number, 1.1, 1.2. Obviously, the 0 modules, which are really very, very important, are not the guidance part, but they're really setting the scene for engaging with all of this, and for engaging with college life and their studies and so on. So they will go through this and they can pick. It's ideal if they go through it from start to finish, but they might decide not to do that. They just go in and think, subjects, that's what I'm thinking about at the moment. I think I'm going to find out and focus more on that. So, they'll go with the kind of thing that maybe, depending on how you influence them or what suggestions you might take, but they will go with what catches their eye, and that's going to be meaningful for them at the time. But I want to point you through that, that there are further resources, and then you will see that there's a quiz. It's not like an exam, it's just a quick, snappy quiz, which is really good and embeds that awareness and learning that they're getting with a bit of fun. So the quiz is a very important element. Just want to give you a kind of a window there of, as we introduce the idea of subject choices and just internal and external factors. And I always ask students about that, because there's so many aspects to a subject. There's the content, of course, and then there's the whole learning and thinking process involved in a subject. How we understand, how we think, are we problem solvers? Do we like to take in a lot of information? Do we like more the freedom to think a bit more creatively and put forward our own opinion? There are so many different types of thinking and learning, as you know, and you're very familiar with. And then there's the content of a subject that may be interesting. So thinking about, their own thinking and learning, and of course, as a general, we might call aptitude. There's so many aspects that govern those internal factors that influence whether they have a natural gravitation towards a subject or not. So we ask them to really think about this. I like to call it like a magnetic kind of natural gravitation. They're drawn to some subjects. So we like to focus on asking them what they find enjoyable, because that's the key here. And then also to be aware of the external factors, because we actually see this in third level. Sometimes, external factors could be a teacher that they have a great influence, a great relationship with, or a teaching style that really suits them, that they connect with, or friends or family or siblings, who are influencers. They're external influencers that influence whether they might like that subject or not, or whether they should even do it. So it's important for them to become aware of that. I certainly encounter that in third level. Sometimes someone might come in and start a subject, embark on it, maybe particularly in arts and humanities degree, because they have such a fantastic relationship with maybe one teacher, and then they kind of realize, that was most of that experience. Now I'm struggling with this. Was it more the teacher or the subject? So it's really good for them to develop that awareness. And so, it's really nice to engage. I think visuals are so important because it draws us in. So they then move on to, clues to your future course. It's quite light touch. And these are kind of a snapshot of the questions they'll be asked later in a worksheet where they have to sit down and think about it more. So they can download this infographic poster, and of course it'll send them on to other links, all of which you're probably familiar with. The prospects one is great because that's more for third level students, but it has such a vast range of information. Even it's UK, but Irish universities have all been under that umbrella as well. It's some great information there. So, what 3 subjects do I enjoy? Can you name 3 to 6 things that you are learning from these subjects? What are the most interesting parts of these subjects? What are the least interesting parts? And so on. So it takes them through that and it gets them thinking. And I think when they look at the visual first, it's like they're not thinking, oh, this is just some black and white typed exercise. It draws them in. So it's very, very useful. And then they move on to the worksheet. And you see it there up close. And again, they'll work through that. And I think, that process as they go through the step-by-step phased process draws them in more and deepens the learning and awareness they have here. To think about the significance of subjects and how that might lead to the future. So particularly this is useful in a number of ways. It's useful for now some of you may be in schools, there are a very small number of schools, as you may know, that actually insist that students select subjects in junior cycle, in third year, in fact, even before they move into TY. So it is a small number of schools. It can be done there. Most schools, of course, in TY allow students to sample subjects, which is a great opportunity. So it could be in 6-week blocks, or you all have a different way of doing that. So I would advocate maybe 3 different uses for this. One is with regard to aiding with subject choice, which is a really, really important decision that they make. So I would encourage students, even when they come into TY and start it, I think this could be really useful to get them to actually reflect there and then on their junior cycle 10 subjects and go through this process for that. And then as they progress through TY, it could be done after maybe 1 block, but probably ideally as they approach Easter, and most of them around that time are having to make those decisions and they've experienced most of the subjects, then I would get them to do it again. So they're doing it for the 10 junior cycle and they're doing it for the TY sampling. And I think that really helps. And of course, you will be giving them lots of other information on subjects that it's important to keep an eye on in order to be eligible, get into certain degrees, and you'll be giving them an awful lot of other guidance and information on that. But I think this is a very useful exercise that will enhance what you're doing. And then I suppose the next piece that we're looking at today is how we take in and process information. So we're all familiar with things like learning styles, which can be very useful for study techniques, the back, visual, auditory, kinesthetic. I'm sure you probably use things like that. And there are lots of different types of learning styles, Honey and Mumford and different things that I certainly use with college students, which is very useful. But this just gets them to kind of explore it without actually doing an assessment. There may be some assessments that you want to do, but it just introduces them to this and in a different way. So it's, looking at how we prefer to process and take in information is very important. How we prefer information to be presented to us, how we process it in our minds, how we take it in, and how we like to organize it. But it can look a little bit complex to them because they may not have been exposed to this before, but I think this infographic poster really presents it in quite a simple way. The white print underneath, sort of explains it, and just they will be encouraged to just look at this and see what they can connect with, where they might see aspects of themselves. And it's helpful. And then when they see that, they can move on. Of course, so they're introduced to content, they're introduced to the infographic poster. And then there's some really nice tips on how to maximize their natural learning preferences. So this could be used in all kinds of ways, but those who are a bit more, I suppose, motivated and focused on their studies, they pay more attention to this. And there are lots of other, resources you're using that may enhance this. But it's just helpful piece in that picture, in that process. So, we've been attempting to create a timeline, a chronology of experiences that kind of make sense with how they're kind of organically moving through the TY to 5th year to 6th year process. So this is useful and it really helps them understand it. And then they have this reflective activity. So this is the kind of activity they have to do here. And they can download the poster and click into resources, other resources that are really useful. and then answer these questions. And then they can put that in their organizer. So how do I refer to their process information and so on? So they go through these questions. And then the subjects you like worksheet is there, just giving you an overview and how, it shows up on the, when they interact with this, and it shows up in resources. Now, the personality bit, of course, you're very familiar with. We all like, I think, John Holland, just so useful and decades of experience. Of course, we know that John Holland has, the combinations of different personality patterns and how an enormous database of how they link to careers. That might need a little bit of modernizing these days with technology and so many new types of jobs, but it's still really useful at this stage of second level. So they're introduced to the kind of concept of 6 very generalized personality types and what I call career relevant personality attributes, and they get to see their pattern, and what's really nice here is we have created, I suppose the archetype really that, a typical person who's well known. Hopefully I think they will know all of these people, and it just gives a really nice description, and with so it's in a very kind of blunt, basic form, the Holland descriptors, but it actually gets them to connect with it. And again, then in terms of when they link onto further resources, they can find in the next window, in the next slide, you'll see where they can link into resources where they can do a Holland profiling exercise. So these are just further resources here, as we move through this. And that again is a piece of the picture, and they can upload that on their organizer. There are some other resources here. There is Qualifax, obviously, which is fantastic, and updated information on choosing subjects and careers portal, which are subject explorers. These are just outstanding resources. I use them all the time. Uni is a great success story, actually, to UCC students. In fact, they had a number of consultations with me while they were designing this app, and they came through the Ignite entrepreneurship program in UCC and designed a fantastic app called Career. It's called Uni. So it's an AI career guidance technology, and there's another one here, Exit Entry app. So, we have other things, and they have a podcast. So they're signposted onto other things as well. And just showing you the video, the kind of multimedia, multi-layered, learning and reflective opportunities here that we have. There's a really nice video there on growth mindset with Carol Dweck. And there's, a career chart there with multiple intelligences. So lots of bits and pieces that they can download. Mindsets, Mind Matters, Career Key, Holland's Test. And there are lots of Holland's tests around. There's another great one on business balls, which is fantastic. And there's one, a short version for second level students. So you're familiar with a lot of these resources. And there's a great one here, technology to make learning easier. So there's lots of other, it's like a lucky bag really of resources for them. So I would really, really encourage you to promote it to students so that they can see how they can play around with it themselves at home, in school. You have so many choices around how you might like to use this to support your guidance program. I include some creative ideas and suggestions. One could be a TY Nurturing Bright Futures project. As you all know, projects and presentations are a key part of learning and of the TY program, and I think this could be a really exciting project. They could trial and complete maybe a select module, or each module, or a part that's linked in some way to them, in terms of what you're doing with them, and they could compile maybe a portfolio of learnings and deliver a presentation. Could go into their TY folder. It could be really nice. Another thing is right from the start, from TY onwards, they could create a three-year portfolio, with lots of other resources that they're using, but students could start to compile a digital folder, from each module and add to it, culminating then in the one-to-one guidance consultation in 6th year. And maybe using it with 5th years, they could divide into groups. Each group could complete a module and maybe deliver a summary of learnings and insights in class, maybe 6 of them at a time or whatever. And then they could be encouraged because they're sharing their insights with each other, then they would end up all taking on all the modules. And I think this is a novel idea that is worth playing around with and exploring more. You could flesh out, and it might trigger some other ideas for you. It could be a 5th year kind of buddy system. So like students would pair up maybe while completing each module and discuss and share and support each other in a sort of partnership experience where, how did you find this? What did you find about that? And did you look up that course? Really great. So it kind of puts it on the agenda for them, So there's some of the ideas. And, we'd really appreciate your feedback. We have an anonymous questionnaire here and like to open this up to discussion, thoughts, ideas, questions. So the floor is over to you. You could, there might be some things in the chat actually, is that it?
Nothing in the chat, Mary.
Nothing. And I am aware you have an IGC meeting today, so you may be in a hurry. But delighted to take any type of question at all.
Perhaps, Mary, if sorry, was someone about to come in?
Sorry, quick one, not really a question, more a couple of observations. It looks fantastic.
Great.
A few times you mentioned you're probably aware of all these resources, and I'm certainly not speaking for everyone, but certainly I wouldn't be as au fait with many of them. And it would, I guess, even if I was aware of some of them, I'd have to dig a little bit to find them. So it's great that some of them are here. But certainly I wouldn't not list any because you think everyone's aware of them. It would always be good to have kind of more the merrier. I'd say in terms of the email that went around, I certainly wasn't positive that this wasn't just for UCC, relevant to UCC. Now, I suspected it probably wasn't, but I'm wondering, did maybe one or two other people think the same and maybe not join in? Not sure, but really, it looks fantastic, and I'm looking forward to getting stuck in myself and giving it a try.
Oh, well, that's great. Thanks. And I mean, just go through it yourself first, because with a view, you might find you might change career. No. I mean, it's just really, I went through it myself again last week just to familiarize myself because, I've been working on this over the last year, and it just gets us kind of connected with the reality of it. So I think we can talk about it then in quite a meaningful way with students. I mean, there are so many resources out there. There are so many free resources that are based on tried and tested models and theorists and that we've worked with. And I think that's one of the things that, like, there is so much available now. We can all get submerged with stuff, we're in that information age, tech. So I think, so these are, this isn't kind of splitting the atom and creating something entirely new. These resources they're all based on sound, solid experience, but it's the fact that they're all pulled together, I think, in a very timely, time-appropriate kind of fashion for students, and they're in one place, and I think, so that's what I think is really valuable about this, that actually, and, as a university, as a key university here, one of the top universities in Ireland, that, like, it's not about, of course, we would love to see students here, but it's really about a service to all students. This is part of engaging with society and the community, that it's like, it's a success if any student who engages with this ends up choosing a direction that they're thriving in and that they're happy in. Because regardless of the degree, whatever they step onto, if it's the right one for them, they will thrive and blossom and develop and expand. And then, they're in the right area. The career would start to take care of itself after that. So that's really the objective. And of course, we hope we see as many students here in UCC, but it's really, you will see it pieced together actually next week. So you'll see with the career interest part how that feeds in. I developed it from career clusters, which is well developed from, I think, Minnesota originally, University of Minnesota, and Minnesota career-wise in the US, and it's used across all kinds of states. And I've sort of, it's kind of localized and Irishized that. It's a freely available resource that's so utilized across so many different areas, and then from that, people can generalize the outcomes from that, apply it to any area or any level of study. So I hope we'll see you again on Wednesday just to complete this piece, which will be around the kind of the career piece, okay, around career interests and so on, and decision making and influences, because it's a huge one. the influences, peer influences are huge. What's in vogue are huge. The title of a course could be huge, and they have to drill down a little bit below that. And so there's a lot of very valuable information in the other three elements, and the other elements of modules 2 and 3. So I think that's it today.
Mary, could I just remind everyone here today that we will be sending hard copies of their print-friendly versions of the infographic posters and the worksheets. So a compiled booklet will be winging its way to you shortly with a copy of the new prospectus. And just to say that if you do use the tool, and we'd be very, very grateful if we could get your feedback, because we do want it to be, an evolving, useful entity. So your feedback, informed the first iteration of it, and we very much want it to inform further iterations of it too. So thank you for being here today on behalf of all of us. And thank you, Mary. That was a wonderful presentation.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you very much, one and all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye now.
Bye.
See you next Wednesday. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, folks.
Thanks.
Thank you.
See you later. Well done, Mary.
Thank you.